Well, some people are calling it an ethanol bailout. The new tax law extends ethanol subsidies, but is the government wasting your money on a sector that some say won't survive long term, will not survive at all? Joining us now with more on this quote-unquote ethanol outrage is Robert Bryce, the author of Power Hungry, The Myths of Green Energy and the Real Fuels of the Future. He's also a senior fellow with the Center for Energy Policy, Environment at the Manhattan Institute. So good to see you. In the idea that we're spending all this money on ethanol and it's a dying industry. It's been out there for a while and now it's back here with us again. What would have been an alternative to the alternative, so to speak?
An alternative to the alternative would be to kill this fuel once and for all. Ethanol is the Frankenfuel of the energy business. It is remarkable to see what happened in the lame duck Congress. We had broad-based, bipartisan opposition to the renewal of the ethanol subsidies. You had everyone from the Grocery Manufacturers Association to the automobile makers to the Sierra Club and the Natural Resources Defense Council and the American Petroleum Institute. Talk about strange bedfellows, and yet they could not stop this subsidy gravy train for ethanol, which has been ongoing since 1978.
So this is well, let's just give you the fact, just for the sake of the argument, that the ethanol subsidies are all about politics, and that's what keeps this going. But the idea of, wanting to get out from under foreign oil and all that, isn't that a worthwhile goal? And if so, isn't there a different direction? That's really what I was getting at with the joke about the alternative to the alternative. Isn't there a different way to go besides ethanol that would have made sense?
Well, first, let me just address the energy independence and foreign oil issue. This is the issue that the ethanol industry has used from the beginning, and it is a false choice. It is a canard. If you look at the last decade or so, the amount of ethanol produced in the U.S. has increased sevenfold. We're now producing about 700,000 or 800,000 barrels of ethanol per day. But over that last decade, when we saw ethanol production increase sevenfold, oil imports, crude oil imports into the U.S. increased by 800,000 barrels a day. So the idea that ethanol has any role to play
I'm not talking about ethanol, but the idea, so we are importing more crude oil, right? I'm asking, is it a worthwhile goal to want to cut that down, even if we say that ethanol is politically driven and we have to turn in a different direction? The idea that we've, over the past 20 years, most of the wars that we've fought, whether it's in Iraq or wherever, no, it has been in Iraq, have been about oil at the end of the day. So is the goal of cutting down on that a fair goal, and it just should be something else other than ethanol?
Well, I'm for more domestic oil and gas production. So I'm in favor. One way to decrease imports is to increase domestic production. But as far as the overall goal, and I take your point, but look at the last year. The United States exported oil to, I believe, 83 countries, and we imported oil or oil products from 82. The oil market is the most global, most transparent, most liquid, biggest market in human history, and the idea that the U.S. is the world's single biggest energy producer and energy consumer should be independent of the world's single biggest market, I think is flawed on its face.
Have we seen any movement on your issues here in terms of having less, I mean, it wouldn't seem like it from this tax bill, but is there any movement in Congress to move away from all these ethanol subsidies? I mean, it almost seems like it would take an act of God, because people have been pushing in this direction for a long time. But any movement that you see?
Well, I was encouraged, in fact, earlier in the month, or in November, you saw the letter from 17 senators written to the Senate majority and minority leaders. There were 9 Democrats and 8 Republicans who wrote to the Senate leadership saying that the ethanol subsidies were fiscally indefensible. And they said that government usually will support a program. They will either mandate it, provide subsidies, or provide a tariff. In the case of ethanol, they pointed out that the government does all three. So one news item that I think is of interest is just today, you had a new coalition of the engine makers, the automobile manufacturers, the boat manufacturers, and the outdoor equipment manufacturers, all filing a legal challenge to the EPA over ethanol. So, yes, the lame duck Congress passed these subsidies, but be clear, the battle over ethanol and what I call the ethanol scam, the political battle is heating up.
Heating up, not over yet. All right, Robert Bryce, good to see you. Thank you for coming on the show. Thanks a lot. All right.
Thanks a million.